Hi, welcome. Thank you for being here today. This week we're talking about the book Power versus Force, and we'll get into that a little bit. That's what this level of consciousness is over here on this side. I'll get it right eventually. Yeah, get there. Anyway, yeah, so thank you for being here today. We're talking about the book Power versus Force, and before we get into that, I usually start off with a daily meditation mantra. Yeah, hope you had a great Halloween. Curious what you dressed up as. If you want to say it in the comments. I didn't really dress up this year. If I did, though, I'd be my pirate. It doesn't fit with but it's my cool pirate hat. So anyway, before we get into that, we'll do the daily meditation. The other day, I was talking about eye patching and how doing that helps strengthen each side of the brain. The pirate thing made me think of eye patching. But yeah, there's another thing. Even here in my notes, I talked about Dr. Goodhart, I believe is who. Yeah. So Dr. Goodhart, he invented tapping and applied kinesiology. Now, I have done tapping, and I'm probably going to mess this up because I don't remember all the spots. But I remember you tap here and here. It's this little crease right here. And if I understand tapping right, I'm just going to talk a little bit about other side modalities. Kind of like the mortar march, something that you can do at home. Tapping you can do by yourself. And then I think it's right here. It's probably about where my necklace is. So I got to pull it in. But yeah, about here, I think, is on the chest. It's actually a little bit under the collarbone. Like right there. I don't know. That's how I remember it. But the tapping will help pull you back into parasympathetic nervous system if I understand and remember it right. Again, I would recommend you look into tapping. There's lots of websites. I've even found one that basically just had a diagram or pictures of people tapping and where to tap and in what order to tap. But yeah, tapping's really interesting. I'll be honest, I've not done it too much. I have done it in a couple classes, but it's not something I remember. It's not something I go to, although I probably should and start working on that more. Maybe Monday I'll see if I can pull out a thing on tapping, or I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't have an idea for next week. This week I just wanted to talk about this book, Power versus Force. Kind of break the ice, get into this, kind of the way that I got into this, so that way people can kind of understand. Anyway, so yesterday's card was Om Shiti Om. Om Shahani Ti Om. Om Shanahi Ti Om. But anyway, that was yesterday's card. We'll throw that, and it's inner peace, which I like that. Which that's something, Power versus Force was talking about. It starts internally before externally, and that's what a lot of this, I would say, energy work is teaching me. I don't know if they're called spiritual principles to some. They're in the book. It even talks about like big G, little G, big P, little P for patriotism. There's healthy patriotism, and then there's like, I don't know, like extremist, I guess, patriotism. But yeah, even with God, it's like the religious is a little G, and then spirituality is the big G, from what I understand. Religion kind of tells you more what to do, than spirituality says, do what you feel is in the greatest, highest good. That's how I understand it. Obviously, other people are going to interpret this differently, which that's something I love. I want to get more into this later on, but we'll talk about it now. Just as far as, bilingual, most people think, oh, you can speak Spanish and English or French and Italian, whatever. No, everybody is, and I don't know, because again, when you say bilingual, most people think, oh, you can speak more than one language. The way that I'm wording it right now, and maybe find a better word for it, maybe it's wordlingual, I don't know. Anyway, but it's, I can say one thing and mean something, and you could say something else and mean something else, or feel something else. Like, when I was younger, far as for me, people would say God, and I would think, I guess, little g, a guy sitting on a cloud, Yeah, and then as I got older and I started studying the spirituality and started, understanding what others meant, I got that they meant it by capital G of this powerful force that, combines us all. And, it's kind of even what this power versus force is, all, what this book about is stepping into power rather than force, and that's how I understand it, if you will. Going with God, say big G, would be these top over here again. I'll get it right eventually. These top ones over here compared to these bottom ones. And that's something we'll talk more about that he even gets into too, is about that. Yeah, again with the tapping, that was, I guess, pioneered or invented through this kinesiology, through studying the body. How I even understand it goes through meridians, which we can get more into that a little bit later. And hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Also, I wanted to say too, I probably won't be posting this video. Well, I guess you won't know it. Yeah, I was going to post this till probably next Monday rather than Saturday. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe you won't see this. If you're not live now, then I guess I'll get an edit how I want. You can always find these on YouTube. And again, I mentioned tapping with Mortar March. Those are the way that I'm going to try and structure this or set this up is they're going to be, first few minutes talk about something that you can do by yourself, not a modality that you need to go to a practitioner for or any of that stuff. Tapping you can do on your own. Mortar March you can do on your own. Smudging, meditating, that kind of thing you can do on your own. That was another thing I first started talking about, different meditations. Stilling the mind, stilling the body, stilling the body, stilling the mind, stilling the soul. That's the hardest meditation from what I understand, and the most commonly thought of meditation when people think of a meditation. Now there's candle meditations, there's guided meditations, all kinds. I talked about one guided meditation that the first time I did it, it was guided, but then after that I just kind of did it in my own mind. And it's just where you're in the room and you go find yourself, and then you're like outside the house, and then you're outside the city, and you just keep moving further back. I mean, you get out by the planets or solar systems if you wanted. I think you can go back and check it out. One of the videos I talk about this, and I just go out to about the moon. And then I come in and I find the country, and then I find my state, and then I find my city, and yeah, just kind of boil it down. And then I find the street, my house, go in and find myself sitting there meditating, and it's a very powerful meditation. I enjoy it. Yeah, and then again, eye patching, that's something else you can do to help strengthen, just your mind and yourself, which I believe all of these are strengthening because they're all vibrating over here on the power side, and that's where we want to align ourselves with, is power. We don't ever want to align ourselves with force. So I got 2 cards actually. We're only going to pick one, but I'll tell you both of them just because I find this fascinating. So again, I just said that we want to align with power, not force. So one card I got was harmony, which I don't think that's what we get when we align with power rather than force. And then the second one, which I think this is more impactful, probably a little bit harder to say, but that's all right. It'll be part of the fun, is right speech, right action. And that's a card we're going to go with today because I think that aligns better with these principles up here that we want to align ourselves with. So here, I'll show you the card. Again, and then, yeah, sorry, I can't see that very well. Right speech, right action. Sun, ka, hal, pa, saham, ma, va, cha. So it's going to be sun, kahal, pa, saham, Mahavacha. All right. Right speech, right action. And that's something, too, that, maybe we can do. This just came to me because I was thinking about these cards. And I thought, well, is that... No. So I was going through this, I was thinking about these cards, and I was wondering, I wonder what these cards calibrate at. Or my first thought was, I wonder if they ever used power versus force in making these cards. And I was like, okay. And then I took it one step further and thought, I wonder if we can calibrate what these cards... Oh, hey, and there's the author on the back right there. Cool. But calibrate these and see where they sit with this scale over here. I don't know. It's a thought. Sun kahal pa shama ha ma vacha. Right speech, right action. Sama vacha, right speech, is a skillful verbal act. It is the virtue that can be cultivated. It is not self-afflicting or afflicting to others. It is soothing, affectionate, appealing, and pleasing, abstaining from lying, deceiving, and abuse speech, and idle chatter. Cultivating right speech in our thoughts leads to our inner dialogue. If our inner dialogue is nourishing what we say and do, then when it becomes our outer dialogue, words are spoken as firm, true, and reliable. They unite and create harmony and soothing to the ear. Affectionate and polite, spoken words that are worth treasuring and are relevant and connection to the goal. Sankalpa is the subtle sub-intention of this type of consciousness speaking, reflecting on words before, during, and after speaking. T, is it true? H, is it helpful? I, is it inspiring? N, is it necessary? And K, is it kind? Think. That reminds me of something from Socrates, a story with him, and it's pretty much the same thing. Somebody runs up to him and says, "Oh, I have something to tell you about your pupil." And he says, "Well, before you tell me it, I want it to pass through these 3 gates." And the first one, is it true? And the second one, is it helpful or is it critical that I know this, if I remember right? And then the third thing is it mean, if I remember right? Like, is it, are you saying this just to get the guy in trouble, or are you saying this out of genuine care? Which, again, think, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Yeah, definitely. I botched that top part up a little bit, but that's all right. That's part of getting better every day. Some days you do it awesome, and some days you need more practice, and that's okay. And also in another book, Robert Jordan's 12 Laws for Life, if I remember right, Antidote to Chaos, he talks about that too. Gaining mastery. That's what he talks about is, the first time you try something, you're horrible at it. And the second time you try it, you're a little bit better, but you're still not that great until you keep doing it and you keep at it, and then you get a mastery over it. Well, part of that, even the meditation of stilling the body, stilling the mind, stilling the soul, it's a practice. It's an ongoing thing. You don't just, oh, I blinked or I rubbed my eye or whatever and give up. You go, oh, I did that. Next time I'm not going to do that. I'll be more in control or aware of that. So anyway, we'll get into the meditation. Sun Kapal Kahal Pa. Sun Kahal Pa. Sun Kahal Pa, if I'm saying that right. Shaham Me Shaham Me Maha Maha Samhama Vicha. Sun Kahal Pa Shahama Vicha. feel like I'm reading tongue twisters sometimes. Sun Kahalpa Shama Vacha. Sun Kapalha Shama Vacha. Sun Kapalha. There's no ha. Sun Kapal. Sun Kapalha Shama Vacha. Sun Kapalha Shama Vacha. Sun Kahalpa Shema Vacha. And then again, sometimes with your hands, you can do this when you're meditating. I personally like to do this. So one hand, I'm holding the card and I'm reading it, and my other hand is just in my lap, like this. It's comfortable. I guess you do with your arms folded, but I wouldn't think that. I like doing this or this kind of thing, because even sometimes it feels too crowded, but that's why just two. But you can feel that pulse, that energy. It feels like your actual pulse, but sometimes it probably is that, and sometimes it's more of a pulse of energy, or at least that's what it seems like to me, or feels like. Sun Kahal Pa Shema Vacha. Sun Kahal Pa Shema Vacha. Sun Kahal Pa Shema Vacha. Sun Kapal Pa Shema Vacha. Sun Kapal Shema Vacha. Sun Kapal Kahal Pa Shama Vacha. Sun Kapal Kahal Pa Shama Vacha. Sun Kahal Pa Shama Vacha. Sun Kapal Kahal Pa Shema Vacha. I like that. That's awesome. Right speech, right action. And how do you know what the right speech or the right action is? Again, you try to align with these over here, the top ones. Trust, optimism, forgiveness, understanding. You try to connect with, or try to make your actions in line with power rather than force, which we talked about a little bit the other day, even with Gandhi, and that's something that they even got more into in the book, was, in order for him to take on colonialism and the British Empire, if you will, from, again, what I understand, he had to align himself with power, and one of the things was no violence. He would not allow any violence in his protesting or his, getting it out there. Yeah, it's awesome stuff. Again, I encourage you to read the book yourself. So we're getting into yesterday. I was talking a little bit about how each level has their own corresponding feeling or viewpoint, which, you can see here, it shows the viewpoint. And then everything, say each viewpoint, everything can be rationalized or justified, which is interesting too, because we also went in and said that force must always be justified. And I told you this story about how I remember, somebody said, if it's true, then you don't need to make an excuse, because the truth doesn't need to be justified. But when, it's not true in a sense, or you're trying to justify it, then, it's low vibration, I guess. And that was, I'm sure the context are different for that statement being true. He just meant it on like coming in late. I don't know. Anyway, play with it your own risk, I guess. Like I said, I'm still learning. I'm still muscle testing, and sometimes I get yes and positives, and sometimes I get false positives. So we'll see. And then we also talked about other universal truths, as far as saying like I have that, or I am that. Like when you said I am my mind and body, you're down here on these lower frequencies where you say I have a mind and body, you're up here in these upper frequencies because you are not your mind and body. They did also talk about how once you have that proper perception of death, of that you're not dying in a sense, because you are this eternal being, if you will, then that helps to open you up and move you into power up here, from what I understand. Again, power rises from meaning. Power always supports life. It's always in the bettering of life. It's always encouraging, I guess, is kind of how I understand it. It wants you to do better. If it's life enhancing or supporting, if it's life enhancing or life supporting, then it's power. Now, it doesn't mean that you could think it's life supporting or life enhancing, like, down here, let's say if you're in pride or courage, and you think what you're doing is life supporting. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to help them help themselves in a sense. Let me help you. I don't know. Anyway, the quote or the thought that comes to mind is, let me help you and put you in a tree before you drown, said the monkey to the fish. And I might have that a little off, but basically, a monkey's telling a fish, let me help you by putting you up in the tree before you drowned in the water. But what the monkey doesn't realize is that he's going to kill the fish by putting the fish up in the tree. So what's good for the monkey isn't good for the fish. And there's also a really great cartoon. Maybe I can find it, or you guys can find it, I'm sure. And it says, if we were all, it's more kind of a thing on school, but it says if we were all judged on how we can climb a tree, most of us would fail. And it shows like a monkey, and it shows like an elephant and a lion, and it shows all the a zebra, and it gets down to like a goldfish in a bowl. Like, okay, well, if we all have to take the same test and we're all judged by one ability, then those other abilities that all those other amazing creatures have kind of goes out the window. And that's how I take it and how I understand it. So what's good for the fish isn't good for the monkey, and vice versa. So, before you go out and judge other people, make sure your side of the street's cleaned up, is some people say, or how I've heard it being said. Well, I guess let me rephrase that and take it back. You don't judge anybody at all, but just, before you try to put a fish in a tree, worry about yourself and your own, where you're at. I don't know. Maybe I might be losing you or getting off subject with that. Back to the power versus force. Over here, if you're down here in the lower, you might think you're doing good. But again, if you're forcing somebody, if they're, doing against their will, it was really interesting. Even in the book, he talks about the United States and, the Constitution, and how it says everybody is a free man with inalienable rights, and how high that calibrated, and how, because that's saying it, we're all equal, we all have the right to pursue happiness, and it's calibrating up here. It's saying, that, and I don't remember, I want to say 700, but I could be wrong on that. Let's see if I wrote it down. No, not offhand. So anyway, yeah, it's just, it's awesome. It's again, I encourage you to look into this yourself. Take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, study it. It's awesome. I know I said that a lot. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is fascinating. This is a freaking mind blow. Like, because to me it is. This is really cool. Now, it sounds to me like there is still some bridging between this and science, which, again, this, as far as I understand, is clearly science. But we are having, I would say, an element of spiritual, or mystic, if you will. I don't know if that would be the right word. Some of this stuff seems like magic, maybe, but it's just because we're still learning how to scientifically track it, if I understand this correctly and better. Now, another thing that it was saying that's interesting with this is, and again, they're using muscle testing, applied kinesiology, with this level of consciousness over here. And it says the universe does not forget all of our choices. They are recorded and reverberate through the ages. He also kind of goes on, and he, again, talking about big G and the little g, or the big P and the little p. He also talks about aligning, and force aligns A-B-C. So A kind of forces B, in a sense, to come about, where true power aligns with A, B, C. They just happen. There's no forcing. Again, they just wrote it out with the dashes on to kind of break it up in your mind of, there's not only that, but just looking or reading at it, the dash just seems a little bit more intrusive. And so that's what happens when you align with force, is you have to be intrusive to get your way or what you want. Again, from what I'm understanding and reading with this. Now, another thing it says that I thought was fascinating and want to share with you guys. Looks like I'm actually running a little over, or running close out of time. Anyway, thousands of reports of near-death experiences every year, or maybe not every year, but there are thousands of reports of near-death experiences. Now, he says there's even 2 bestseller books, which he recommended and said calibrate. So with all these near-death experiences, two out of the thousands wrote a book. One is Saved by the Light, or the other one is Embraced by the Light. I'll probably pick up both of those, look into them myself, because they sound interesting, and maybe I'll even do a review of the book on here. But he does go on and say both those books calibrate at $5.95, and he says, which confirms basically that the book's not down here in force, so it's not lying. It's calibrating. What did I say? $5.95. So that's almost up here, way up here. That's awesome. So in order for it to calibrate that high, there has to be a truth to it, is how I'm understanding it. So he says it confirms that and again, I haven't read the book, so I don't know, but he says with these books and these books calibrating this high, it confirms that we accept responsibility of all we do think. We have to atone, and I don't know if that's the right word. I don't want to say atone, because he didn't say atone. He said that basically just all of everything we think, all of our actions, everything we do will reverberate through time, and to some extent it sounded like recorded, because it's like you drop a pebble in the pond and it reverberates out. That's kind of what we're doing here, I guess, in all of our thoughts and actions. It's going to reverberate out through time and space. Again, we also talked about how in body language and with some of this stuff, it talks about how you can't hide anything, that everything is out there for everybody to see or to know. You just have to know what to look for, or you have to know how to look, I guess. But yeah, so wow is all I got to say to this, to me. And again, I've played with applied kinesiology. I have had the adverse where I got a positive for a negative and whatever, and I've also had it to where this stuff has come through true. It's definitely something that I'm going to continue playing with. Like I said, it's something we use with B.E.S.T. I've never had a problem using it with B.E.S.T. It always seemed to work very well. Now with B.E.S.T, maybe I got a yes when I should have got a no, and so that went to a different procedure or treatment, or maybe it meant the treatment ended a little sooner. Again, from what this book's saying and from what I have read from other, I guess, spiritual, everything happens for a reason. Everything's perfect. So, I don't know. That gets into a whole nother debate or discussion of free will and all that, which I'm not going to get into now. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Fascinating even. I encourage you to look into this yourself. This is all the time I have. I hope you'll be back here next week with me. Where we'll have a lot more great information for you. We will refer back to this book. Maybe I haven't finished reading it yet. I'll probably finish it up this weekend. And then if I have any other maybe notes or things to add to it. Again, this book has come up with my best studies and in other areas and ways. So as well as certain things, like the tapping that I heard about in this book, which was I shouldn't even say I heard about in this book. Who I heard about the pioneer of it or inventor of it, and doing a little bit of research, found out that he did tapping. Well, with tapping, I've heard about through other classes and done through other energy sources. So, things do come full circle, if you will, or yeah, it's connected, and there's definitely something to this. So I'm going to continue to study it, and I hope you're here to join me with that. And with that, I have I will have a wonderful day and a great weekend, and I wish you to have a wonderful day and a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining me.